I just want to have a quick look at the Euros and how my betting went on it. Now, I've developed a whole set of techniques over many years, but this time I was using some new fancy gadgets. In particular, I just learnt machine learning with R. So using that, I was able to plug in multiple different data sets and amalgamate them all together. So basically, I applied unsupervised learning to kind of group the teams, actually classify the teams. So I tried different numbers of classifications. So in unsupervised learning, you can kind of say, okay, there are 5 different types here. So then R tries to figure out, okay, you've got A, B, C, D, and E. These are A teams, these are B teams, C, D, and E. And then you kind of look at them, and I can kind of go, well, actually I was only kidding. There are 4 teams, 4 types. So then it figures it out and says, oh, well then, these are A, B, C, and D. Oh no, sorry, actually there are only 3 teams. And so, you can just try telling it that there are different numbers of types of teams. And then you can kind of see which makes sense, or what you want to go with. So I used that, and then that was extra information that I'd never had before. So then I could kind of go, okay, there are all these different factors, so you could see what the rankings of the different teams were. Well, I'm not going to go through them, but there were multiple different factors. But R was then able to, streamline it and tell me this is an A team playing against a C team. And that was new. I never had that ability before. And so this is how that went. So it began kinda badly. I bet on the England versus Russia match, and I backed England. Now, I didn't just use the machine learning here. I also knew that Russia had lost 3, 4, 5 key players. So that actually Russia were a decent, good team. But I mean, any team would suffer if you stripped away the heart of the team. At the same time, England had done very well, as they often do, in the group stages. And I just thought, nope. And my classification was backing England. So I backed them. And they lost. Well, I think they drew. Though by all accounts, England did play very well. They created many chances, but they just didn't take them. But with a bet that it's on in the long run. I mean, you could get everything right, but still lose any given bet. But then things just turned. Albania, Switzerland was again a very clear game to me, because Albania was a class C or D team. It was the weakest type of team, and Switzerland were pretty good. I don't think they were an A team, but you got far better odds than I would have thought. I think Albania were very low ranked, one of the lowest ranked, one of the weakest teams in the competition. I mean, they defended well, but I didn't expect much. Now, there was an issue which I hadn't known before, that supposedly Albania Switzerland is like a derby match. In fact, there were brothers, one playing for Albania and the other playing for Switzerland. So, and if it's a derby match, that makes it more noisy. So in general, you want to stay away from derby matches, or so you can't have a very strong favourite in a derby match, is what I mean. But at least then I was feeling better, because it was a bigger bet on the Albania Switzerland than the England match. Next, Germany Ukraine. That, well, the odds weren't great, but Germany are Germany, and so now I'm feeling better. So we've had 2 wins, 1 loss. But again, it's a new machine. This is the first time that I was applying my machine learning algorithm. The 13th was superb. 4 bets, 4 wins. So now suddenly, I normally expect to win maybe 2/3 of my bets when things are kind of going fine. So now I've had 1 loss and 7 wins. Is there something to this machine learning rubbish? Or now the next 2 losses. Hungary were pretty weak, according to my machine learning. Or from ranking, I forget all the categories. There was a lot of, I think Austria had done well in qualification, and the pundits, everyone felt Austria were perhaps surprise outsiders. Portugal, Iceland. Portugal have a far higher ranking. Again, the machine learning was very strong behind Portugal. So now we had 2 losses. France, Albania. France. Now, the odds were very much behind France, so it was a tiny win. There were probably other bets that would have been smarter. Now what happened? Ukraine, Northern Ireland. Ukraine were rated far higher, so that I was pretty confident going into that, though Northern Ireland had been doing well. Germany, Poland, a loss. Now here, my bet size was small, because to me, Germany, Poland is like a derby, so I wouldn't want to have too much conviction behind either side here, and so I didn't bet much. England, Wales, again a kind of derby-ish, so a small bet. it was a win, but in the end, Wales went a lot further than England, and Wales took the lead in the game. So, it could have been different. So again, things are still in general going well. Austria-Hungary was the disappointment. I mean, that's an imaginary 500 lost. Italy-Sweden, I thought was a simple bet, because Italy had been superb against Belgium. And Belgium being one of the really fancy teams. And Sweden were a Class C team, according to the machine learning algorithm. They basically... had Ireland played Sweden yet? But, it had not... I think Ireland had played Sweden. I don't think I bet on it there. So, I mean, basically Sweden have Ibrahimovic, but aside from that, not much. And Italy are Italy. So again, things are going, that's a nice win. That makes up for the Austria-Hungary. Portugal-Austria. It must have been a draw. Yeah. Because Portugal hadn't been impressive. And Austria still, at the back of my mind, you have information about them being one of the surprise outsiders, which they didn't live up to at all. Slovakia, England. Again, England might be coming together. I mean, they just beaten Wales. Again, just unimpressive. Disappointing by England. So, in general, the betting went better than I would have expected. It was remarkably predictable. You could just use historical data. You could look up the rankings and the other pieces of information of interest, and based on those, predict who was going to win. So still, Wales, Belgium. I thought, because basically Wales had been in the same group as Belgium in qualification, and they'd won once and drawn. So Belgium had never, or hadn't beaten Wales in their recent run-ins. So to get a Asian handicap meant that if it was a draw, I'd win, and if Wales won, I'd win. So that was why. I mean, that was an attractive bet to my mind. That said, it's not a 500 bet. I didn't, it wasn't a kicking and screaming bet. This was a lovely one. In fact, I'm surprised I didn't bet more, because Iceland had scored in every game. I mean, for the last 12 games. And France had been scoring very well also. And Iceland had tended to concede. So the fact that you were getting better than evens odds for this was silly. I can say that now because that's what happened. Though, I think weren't France 4-0 up or something? So during the game, it was far more France than I'd expected. So the two bets were more than 2.5 goals and both teams to score, both of which won. This LA Galaxy versus Vancouver had very strong statistics behind it. That's why the odds are only 1.67. Fortunately, I only bet 300, but I would make that bet again. I think LA Galaxy won 2-0. The ending is finally some disappointing results. I thought Wales would beat Portugal. It was very... No, I'm trying to remember. I think Portugal won comfortably. So that was a surprise. Though, you know, it wasn't a kicking and screaming one. It was kind of moderated. Thinking back now, I thought that there was a good chance of a draw because Portugal hadn't scored or hadn't been in the lead in 90 minutes and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, it's not a 500 bet. Still disappointing. These two, the final two, were disappointing. They were bigger losses, both 500. In a way, the danger is that when you go on a run of wins, you kind of forget that you can lose, and you can relax your standards and just go make bigger bets than you should. Looking back, I would still do the 500 for the Germany-France, both teams to score. Just because the feeling had been that Germany were going to win. They were favourites. France's defence was kind of their weakness. Deschamps countered that. So what he did was, France were scoring all the time, but their defence was their weakness, perhaps. So he played a far more defensive strategy than people expected. And it worked. To be fair, in the end, I would blame the referee. You know, Germany were all over France. If it weren't for the fact that the ref kind of gave a soft penalty to France wouldn't have scored. And then it would have been a totally different game. That said, it was a penalty. You know what I mean? So, the vagueness of football. This was my silly bet. Aberdeen are a far stronger side than CS Fola Esch, who are from, I think, Luxembourg. But I heard this tip from somewhere. I hadn't done my own analysis really. In general, stay away from cup games. They're far harder to analyze because you don't know which team cares. What happens is some teams really might be more focused on the league, and they don't want the distraction of European competition. So they basically rest their players in Europe and get shock surprises. And that happens very often. So it's not like it'll happen once a season. So basically betting 500 was wrong. Also, Aberdeen had won the first leg 3-1. So therefore, Aberdeen kind of knew they'd already won. So why would they make all that effort and try and win by more than a goal? A draw was totally fine. So that was a silly bet. What I wanted to comment on as well is that, so on the one hand, the Euros were incredibly predictable. You know, there were far more wins. There were far more wins than I'd expect. So, normally, I don't expect to get win. I mean, there's so many. Yet, in the later stages, you had so many shocks. I mean, an unbelievable amount of shocks. Just doing a quick recap, France had never beaten Germany in a tournament. Or not since 1958. So, suddenly, they beat them. Germany had never beaten Italy in an international competition. Suddenly, Germany beat Italy. What were the other ones? I'm sure I've forgotten one of them. But in the final, Portugal had an awful record against France, having lost, I think, 10 games in a row against France. So that's very hard to comprehend. I mean, how come you can have in the same competition results being incredibly predictable, results very much following the form book, because all the machine learning, all my predictions here were basically based on using historical data and then forecasting the future based on the historical pattern remaining. Yet there were huge shocks, as I mentioned, the Germany, France, Italy, Germany, Portugal, France, and so on. Now, in a way, that information, the fact that France, Germany was a shock, because the last time France had beaten Germany was over 50 years ago, that would not be in my data set. So in my machine learning program, I did not, all the data that I used would have involved information about essentially the last year, if not even 6 months. So given that my system only had data relating to the short to medium term, it would be unaware and blind to the fact that there were very long-term patterns that were broken. So it wouldn't have even realized that what had happened was a huge shock. From my system's point of view, what did I do? I didn't bet on the final. It was just too hard to call. You had the classic stalemate of Okay, so France had scored more goals, but Portugal had defended very well. Now, both teams prefer to counterattack. So, yes, the formation and strategy that France used worked to some extent. Again, I blame the penalty against Germany, because Germany were going to come and did attack. But that wasn't going to be the case for Portugal, because Portugal were happy to sit back and go, come on, France, it's your home game, you come out and attack. So, that being the case, my feeling was, leave this be. There wasn't a kicking and screaming bet to be made. And that's why a computer system which only is aware of the short to medium term was unaffected. And in general, like in poker, most games should not be bet on. So you want to use your friends' patience and discipline, and basically go, I don't have to bet on every game. I can give this one a miss. There were many games in the European Championships, and you can see here there were not that many bets. So you patiently want to wait until you get an opportunity. And that's the same whether you're trading in shares, trading in currencies, betting. So that's just a quick summary of Euro Championships betting and how that went. I might spend a little time on machine learning if the right time, or if the opportunity arises. So if perhaps I can see an opportunity to use machine learning to help us in analysis for trading or something like that, then I'll do it. But for the moment, actually, I want to look at the market from a bearish perspective. As in, I just read some stuff on Bloomberg where they were talking about the Japanification of the US bond markets and that kind of stuff. So, which is a very bearish picture, where the guy was talking about how, with demographics, you have far more people retired and the state having far greater debt, and so then unable to do fiscal stimulus. And so basically, if you look at some of the forecast, America more is stuck at trying to get greater than 1% growth. So we're now entering perhaps a new era where the developed world is stuck at very low growth. And what does that mean from our investment point of view? So I haven't got everything sorted in my head about that yet, and I have a couple of things coming up this week, work-wise. But that's roughly where that's roughly what I'm thinking about at the moment. So till next week.